Why am I feeling like everything is on the line for this promotion?
Social media and all of that, it's expectations on steroids, right? I need to marry a nice Desi partner in order to be loved.
Can I actually be a
like,
bad egg? The comparisons with others is
Yeah.
so pervasive, infectious in not a good way. How do you tackle that? Welcome back, everyone. I'm really excited to have Paulomi Dave-Potter on the podcast this week. And I'm going to ask you to introduce yourself and tell us about the amazing work that you do with the South Asian community.
Thank you, Heena. I'm so happy to be here. I am Paulomi. I am a licensed therapist in Massachusetts. My practice focus is with first-generation Americans and foreign-born professionals. I myself am of South Asian background, and so I work a lot with South Asian clients, East Asian clients, and international students and professionals that are here in the Boston, Cambridge area.
Paulomi, your practice is called Meeting You Therapy. Can you tell us what led you to naming it that way?
Yes, as a framework, as a therapist, we talk a lot about meeting the client where they're at. And that always has really resonated with me. And we can be completely trained and ready to go and ready to hit the deepest part, and the client just may not be ready for that. And I think that's particularly my approach in my work, which is listening, right? And trying to navigate and create a space that feels comfortable for the client to be able to start to open up.
It's a way of the therapist meeting the client. And I wonder also with the client meeting themselves and seeing different parts of themselves. It'd be great for the audience to meet you and learn a little bit about your identity as well.
My parents immigrated to the US from India in the 60s, in 1967. I was born here, and I have two sisters, so the three of us. So I'm second generation here, and did all of my schooling in Massachusetts too. I have two children. My husband is Irish and some other European things, and kids are biracial. And so identity comes up in a lot of different ways.
Your parents came here in the 60s, and you're working with immigrants who have migrated from India and other countries more recently. And I'm wondering if there is any parallel between the stressors and pressures that maybe your family experienced growing up or your parents experienced and the ones that you are working through with your patients in your practice.
Yeah.
Are the issues the same? Have they changed?
So leaving home, right? And like leaving everything you know and everyone you know behind. I think that's universal for sure. There's just that feeling of being homesick and things being unfamiliar. One way that a client once described this to me, who's from India, and I think about it often, he said, she's from Bombay back home. And so Mumbai, so many people. It's hard to be alone ever because they're just like always people.
Just always people around. Yeah.
Which is total stark opposite to being in Boston, particularly in the winter, being so isolated and alone. And you really have to make an effort to try to find people sometimes. And you're just the people about being homesick or family, but it's also just like the environment, being familiar with seasons. You know, images can be so comforting sometimes. In New England, it's always the seasons, right? I grew up here, so what it looks like that time between winter and spring when things are in bloom, it's brown. And like we joke about it in mud, right? It's just mud season. But I know it so well that I find my comforts within it. And that's not easy for someone who's not from here, isn't familiar with just like the patterns of the way things are. Yeah. So there's like a loneliness, I guess is what to say, that feels universal to that experience of like leaving home and being in a new place and trying to navigate it without like your family and friends around.
And that loneliness piece, I'm sure that people who migrated earlier in earlier decades felt that, maybe even felt that a little bit more when the US wasn't as diverse, where there were even fewer pockets of places that had brown folks. How do the first generation foreign born immigrants that you work with, what are some of the issues that they come to you to navigate in addition to
Yeah.
that loneliness? And how do you help them work through that loneliness besides like brainstorm ways to make friends and maintain
Yeah.
connection in the winter?
Recognizing and naming our emotions, right, is going to be really powerful. And I think sometimes that's a place where we start. Maybe it's not completely anger, but it's like it's frustration, it's agitation, and like the different kind of layers of it, and
Mm-hmm.
or like shame or embarrassment, building that vocabulary about how to
Mm-hmm.
just communicate how we're feeling and identify it, um, so that we can label it for ourselves. And that can be really powerful to even just name the emotion. It gives it less power, almost immediately, actually. I'm feeling anxious because I
Mm-hmm.
miss my
It's almost
mom.
like you have more control then because you know what's going on inside of you as opposed to it happening and overriding you.
Yes, yeah. And also understanding that feelings are temporary, right? They come and they go. And when they're here, we can learn from it, right? What am I feeling? What does it mean? What do I need? If it's a sad day, right?
Mm-hmm.
Understanding that it may just be a sad day and that it doesn't have to mean more than that always. And that we want to pay attention. Okay. Like,
Yeah.
what do I need today? To
Mm-hmm.
call a friend, or maybe I need to get out for a walk, or maybe instead of that like really intense workout, I'm just gonna do some stretching at home,
Sure.
myself a cup of tea.
I'm thinking about how some of the Desis that I work with in my practice, if they're feeling sad, suddenly they are wanting to draw meaning from it, that there's something terribly wrong. And there could be something like a need that's unmet. And also, it's the seasons that our body goes through. Sometimes we just have some of those days too.
Yeah.
Does that come up at all about like superstitions and drawing meaning and making some of the
Yes.
cultural patterns that we might have been
Yes.
raised with?
That, and like from a CBT lens, that can be emotional reasoning, right? Where it's like,
Mm-hmm.
if I feel it, it must be true. That's not always the case, right? And there's also this piece of creating space, right? This is in mindfulness, right? That comes up, this like creating space between the stimulus and the response, right?
Love that quote. Like
Yes,
between stimulus and response, there's a space. In that space lies our power to choose our response, and our
that's
response lies our
exactly.
growth and freedom by Viktor Frankl. I know I love
Yep.
that quote. Yeah.
Yep.
Not to hijack the conversation, so take it away. But
Please.
the how powerful it is to recognize that like we have the ability to choose our response if we offer ourselves just a pause, just a breath, a second to be
Hmm.
more intentional in
Yeah.
how we okay, respond, but like how do we address whatever's coming up for us? And
Yeah.
the way I frame therapy is like a lot of therapy is figuring out what do you do in that pause? What helps you first insert a pause? And then what do you do in that pause that will best serve you in that moment? And that's a way of meeting you, like meeting yourself and
Yes.
recognizing what you need in that moment. It sounds like you use this pause and
Yes.
the mindfulness piece. How do you use that in your practice?
Yeah. A lot of different ways.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's finding a place where they can open up to this idea. What are they ready for? So mindfulness, it's being in the present moment, right? And so how do we do that? How do we come to this present moment? And it's the senses, right? There's so many things we can do. And sometimes I try to make a
Mm-hmm.
like, oh, how can I stimulate my senses right now? I'm
Mm-hmm.
feeling anxious or I'm getting distracted. How can I bring myself back here? And it's like, okay, what do I see? What do I hear? What do I touch? What do I taste? I always have my,
Mm-hmm.
right? All these things with the feeling of your pants, or, I always have like stones, like
Mm-hmm.
grounding kind of stones in my office
Mm-hmm.
too, a way to just develop that skill, to
Yeah.
be able to kind of to shift, because it's a shift is what it is, right? It's like, okay,
Mm-hmm.
how do I bring myself back?
Mm-hmm.
Um, Yeah. It's all.
It's like so simple and so effective at the same time. And
Mhm.
it's a matter of getting into that habit of even like noticing when you're off and you're ruminating or worrying and being able to come back. And I think that's
Yeah.
definitely something I see that people get better at in through
Mhm.
therapy often if they're mindful of it. Who are the people that come to you and what are some of the issues that you help them navigate and address?
If we think about just the stage of life, if
Hmm.
someone's coming for graduate school or they're coming for like a PhD program or like early career, it's 20s, early 30s, or sometime in that stage where is a big developmental
Hmm.
question. So marriage, kids, right? Those kinds of questions. What
Hmm.
do I want my future to look like beyond career? And often in South Asian culture, there's a lot of pressure for marriage and kids. So often there are conversations around navigating that pressure from parents, from family, from society. Do I want to get married? Do I want to have children? What if I don't? Is that
Ooh,
even an option? Oh,
yeah.
exactly. Exactly. Or
You don't want to get
like,
married? Oh my
right.
goodness.
Or like, who can I partner with? And I'll say it from, am I allowed to partner with who I want to? If,
Hmm.
as someone who married an American man back when I didn't know if it was even allowed to marry a non-Indian. A lot of messaging around that. I think it still is.
And especially if maybe if they've come here by themselves and their families back home, there might be just an expectation. There's not even a choice that they are presented with or come to believe. And so that internal expectation that they inherit then, oh, like I must marry a Desi, like I have to marry someone who's Indian and who's of a similar background to me. It's a huge expectation that
Yeah.
people carry. What do you do with that?
Marriage and children are two things that everyone has an opinion about for some reason. And
Hmm.
parenting, right? All of that has an opinion.
Hmm.
Um, and I call it noise. It's like there's just a lot of noise
Hmm.
around it. And so what we were talking about earlier about mindfulness and being present, like part of that skill is learning how to quiet the noise. Who am I and what do I want? And if there wasn't noise around this, what choices would I be making? Right? This is your space. Let's use this space to quiet the noise. Be in a place that's non-judgmental and where you can drive.
The noise metaphor that you're using is so powerful because sometimes even the silence can seem really
Yeah.
foreign and make people feel uncomfortable. Like,
Mm,
what do you mean I can listen to myself? That's such an individualistic thing to do.
right.
So even just that getting reps in doing that, like what do I want? Like where how do I want to show up in my relationships? What kind of relationships do I want to create? Like what kind of decisions do I want to make for me?
Yeah. Yeah.
Being unshackled from the guilt that they might feel related to the thoughts of I should be working in this career in biotech, getting married to this person who is from the same town that my family's in, et cetera. Could you share someone who you've worked with where you help them quiet that noise? And
Mm.
what did they have to quiet? And how do they do that? How do they listen to themselves?
Yeah, definitely a theme with falling in love with someone who's not Indian, who's not of the same culture.
How could
Definitely a
you?
theme. Well,
Mm-hmm.
right. And then this other piece about how dating culture here in America is it's just expected. It's what people do and it's how we meet partners and often my clients they're dealing with family, their parents who aren't familiar with that concept or that or didn't experience
Mm-hmm.
it. And so there's a lot of maybe misconceptions that they're having to navigate or answer questions about dating and also even just like getting advice like like who do I go to who knows how to navigate this. So sometimes even with clients that's their questions about that. Is this normal? Is it okay to feel good about this. I think I have a connection with this person, but it doesn't
Mm.
quite feel right. Is it okay to be attracted to a non-Indian person and pursue that? Like
Mm.
it's
Mm-hmm.
and me making this choice, is this the right thing for my family? Does my family need supersede my own individual need here? Am I a good son? Am I a good daughter if I make this choice? Right?
Yeah. The fear and the discomfort of prioritizing oneself and not knowing how that decision is going to impact the larger family system.
Yes. Yes.
And it's like almost coming to therapy to talk through that. Maybe even sometimes what I find is folks will want guidance, like want direction. And I have to be really mindful of that. And it's like, that's not my job.
Mm-hmm.
I know it's really uncomfortable to not have someone
Mm-hmm.
to just tell you the answers.
Oh, 100%.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. Yes. Because learning to make these decisions for yourself, and that can be uncomfortable. I think,
Mm-hmm.
particularly in some Desi family constructs, it's like the children are told what to do and they do it.
Mm-hmm. It's
At
simple,
least if
right?
at least if you're a good one, do
Can I
it. And
actually be
it's
a
like,
bad egg? Like, you're telling me that it's okay, that it's not actually bad to be listening to myself?
mhm. We're not giving advice, right?
Mm-hmm.
But we do normalize. No, that's not outlandish for you to want to
Mm-hmm.
listen to yourself, or it's okay to be curious about a different prototype, we'll say, like for partner.
Mm-hmm.
That's also normal and that's okay. And you're not bad for wanting to explore something outside of the path that's been presented to you or laid out for you, maybe by your family.
Yeah, it's the normalizing that is the work. Part of the work is that you are listening to the more deeper desires that are emerging for you
Mm-hmm.
as you think about this major life decision. And you're helping them tune out that noise, right? Move away from all that static. It's all jumbled and gaining clarity by fine tuning on your desires, normalizing that for folks, that it is okay for you to explore what you want, even if what you want looks very different from everyone in your family. You are the first generation, perhaps, to be doing that, not just the first
Yes.
generation to have migrated to the US. And like with these decisions, there's the marriage piece. And then I assume a lot of these folks who've come over are also wanting to achieve. And
Yes.
boy, there's so much pressure behind that. How do you see that showing up in your work?
There are a lot of work struggles that come up because something that general society maybe isn't as aware of is that getting a visa and maintaining a visa requires certain achievements, whether it's getting a research paper published, like the amount of papers someone has published can directly impact their ability to obtain a visa, or maintaining employment and not having gaps in their employment, right? Their work visa is directly affected by that. Right. So if there are layoffs, and there are a lot of layoffs in tech right now, if there are layoffs, someone's visa status is impacted. A lot of international people that work in that space, and alongside people who are going for promotions, right? For one person, it could literally be like a survival as opposed to like a goal, um, which this work has really opened up my eyes to that, just like how critical this achievement piece is. So there's pressure within the family. And I think, like, as second generation, it's an implied, well, not always just implied. So
It's
it's
very
like,
explicit at times.
exactly. But I think some of that, it comes from the pressure that like the first generation had. It really was survival. And so that's where some of this intergenerational like anxieties, stress, pressure,
Mm.
we feel it as children, right? Somehow subconsciously it gets passed down. It becomes a part of our family makeup, right? Achievement.
Yeah. For some folks, like their family has spent their family's savings to send someone to
Yeah.
school in the US. And
Yeah.
so knowing that, like knowing the sacrifice that has been made
Yeah.
is like adds to that drive, that pressure that they feel to achieve and be successful and perhaps then send money back home and take care of their
Yeah.
family, which is both a cultural layer there that they have inherited as well as maybe stemming from the guilt that they feel because of the huge sacrifice that their family made. And also, another layer is someone migrating from India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, like they're coming here, they're not with their family, they're not there to take care of their aging parents.
Yes.
And so there's also that guilt of, well, I left, so it has to mean something. I have
Yes.
to make it here.
Oh, absolutely.
It's so heavy.
Um, and that grief and loss piece too is significant and something that's important to hold as well with clients. There's like the grief and loss of leaving, right? Of being apart. And then there's like when family members die back home and they're not able to be there, or particularly during COVID, the COVID years, actually
Mhm.
couldn't go back. And there's a lot there. And that's like a very specific experience, I think, that first generation immigrants hold, where it's deep connection and deep loss together, all,
Yeah.
holding both of those at the same time. Um,
Absolutely. I can see us kind of going through the feelings wheel and naming so many emotions that Desis feel for various reasons. And when you experience that loss or you have that grief that you may or may not have processed, how sometimes that can get metabolized into even more pressure or greater expectations that you're going to accomplish once you come here. Going back to the noise, it's being able to clarify for yourself, why am I feeling like everything is on the line for this promotion? Putting like the H-1B visa aside, for example,
yeah,
like how much weight people often carry on their shoulders
yeah,
because it's actually driven by emotions.
yeah,
I'm thinking about some people that I'm working with and just how heavy it can be, and also how foreign that can feel in their relationships, especially
yeah,
if they're not married to someone who's of the same cultural background, too.
yeah, yeah,
And their partner's like, I don't get it. You're very successful in my eyes, right? Like you
yeah,
came here, you're independent, like you left your home country. Like, why are you
right,
freaking out?
right,
It's like, well,
right,
you don't get it. And there's an episode that I have on core emotional needs, and it's their self worth is tied to their identity. That's a
yeah,
hop, skip, and jump away from feeling unloved.
that's true. Yeah, this idea of conditional love, right?
Hmm.
And it could be a message that got mixed up along the
Hmm.
way. But
Hmm.
but it feels like the love is conditional. I need to be helping my parents in order, I need to be achieving in order to be loved. I need to marry a nice Desi partner in order to be loved, or I need to have kids in order to be loved, right?
Can people articulate that I need to do this to feel loved, to feel
Yeah, yeah.
accepted? How do people frame that for themselves?
They'll say it feels conditional.
Well, that's
Yeah.
because they're working with you and they know they have the language now for
Yeah,
naming
they
that,
do. They
right?
have language. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes. Oh, it takes time to get there for sure.
Sure. But even naming
Um,
it as like, I need to do X, Y, and Z to feel loved,
mhm.
I wonder if that opens a door for them. Like if it does something for the person to be able to acknowledge that.
Yeah. I guess like just because I'm older now and I see my parents as grandparents now, which is they're very different as
Mm-hmm.
grandparents than they were as
Mm-hmm.
parents. They're most loving grandparents I've ever seen. And again, this is the emotional reasoning. Like it felt that way, and it feels that way for you right now, that it's conditional, but maybe it's not. Well, what could that look like? Maybe that's coming from a hurt part or a hurt place, and let's explore that. What's underneath that? Yeah, it's not black or white. And so maybe this conflict with our parents growing up is like, was it like hurt part meeting hurt part? It's like your parents are hurt and you're hurt. And it's like, and
Mm-hmm.
that's where it just felt, nobody felt loved in that moment, but doesn't
Mm-hmm.
necessarily mean the love wasn't there or isn't there, or so how to get through that.
Yeah. I have this episode of the grandparents episode where talked about using dialectics and being able to make requests so that you can both set limitations with grandparents
Mm.
about how you want them to be around your kids while also respecting their way of love and honoring that too.
Yes.
And so I love that both of those things can be true. Like you can have some limits while also respecting and honoring and fostering that love. The piece about conditional love and how perhaps it was parents' vulnerabilities meeting the child's vulnerabilities. And so neither party felt loved because the child had core emotional needs and the parent also had some things that they needed. I think there's a term called immigrant bargaining, but it's essentially where parents might make sacrifices. They might not splurge on themselves because they're trying to provide as many means as they can for their children, but then expecting that to, lead to college, grad school, a great job, financial security, etc. That leads to expectations and where maybe that
Yes.
love becomes conditioned.
Yes. I heard someone explain this actually. It was like, particularly our relationships with our parents and our children, it can't be one for one. It just can't. If you think about how much sacrifice our parents and us as parents, how much you give to your children, and it's just because it's love. Like you just love
Mm-hmm.
them. You give, and you're in a position to give. That's your job, right? And like,
Mm-hmm.
there's no possible way we could ever repay that love. And that expectation almost like doesn't make sense, right? It's like too
Mm-hmm.
simplistic, but it's like, no, it's so abundant. It's just
Mm-hmm.
so rich. And it's just the human condition, right? It's just
Yeah.
human. Like we give and we love, and there's no way to even like calculate.
I need to do this because I owe them, as
Yeah.
opposed to I want to take my parents on a vacation because I think it'll be so fun for all of us to travel to Greece, right? Like
Yes.
that is a different frame of mind and takes away the obligation, the
Yeah.
expectation, the pressure.
Yes.
Um, so there's subtle ways of moving away from that. So like you were saying, breaking that intergenerational pattern of conditional love, conditional regard.
Hmm.
It's so subtle. It sneaks up, I think, and people don't even realize it. I don't realize it sometimes when I might be doing that too, where
Right.
it's really taking a look and figuring out like, why am I doing the thing I am with my family? Is it because
Mm.
I want to, or is it because I feel like I must, I have to, because it is so implicitly ingrained in me that this is something I need to do. So, like, an example is I was having a conversation
Yes.
with my mom recently about, well, I have some family visiting, and do I need to host them? Like, do I need to have them over, cook, and do all that? Or can I just take them out for dinner? And my mom, of course, was like, well, you should definitely have them over, but you can order out if you need to. So trying to find
There
like
you
a
go.
balance, which I was like,
Yeah.
fine. And, I have a 5-month-old baby. And so thinking also about what do I want? And is me doing this because I feel like I have to, because I have these expectations on me and I'm going to be disappointing my family, or then I'm going to injure some relationship from in the extended family. And is that more important than making sure that my daughter gets her bedtime routine and that we have predictability in our schedule? What's the cost? Where do I want to expend my energy? So asking myself constantly, why am I doing the things that I am doing? Is it coming from my values or is it coming from my expectations with
Yes.
Desis? Because we don't so often pause and look at what is the stimulus? What is the
Yeah.
scenario that I'm in? and how do I want to respond in a way that is growth for me and
Yeah.
potentially my line moving forward.
Yes. And that's the noise, right?
Mm-hmm.
What's the expectation of
Yeah.
that? Like, and
Mm-hmm.
that's the noise. And it's just, it's everywhere. But even when we talk about social media addiction, right, all of that, it's expectations on steroids, right? That's
Yeah.
what it is, right? And now it's just like
Uncontained.
screaming at you, like right before you go
Yeah.
to bed, and like
Yeah.
you're picking up your daughter, and it's like telling you're supposed to be like eating this
Mm-hmm.
for dinner.
This is something that's been coming up in my work. So I'm going to ask, sort of do a little consultation, side consult with you.
Yeah.
The comparisons with others is
Yeah.
so pervasive.
Yeah.
And I've been seeing that come up in my practice. How
Yeah.
do you tackle that? Where do you go with that when people start saying so and so is accomplished more or has this beautiful wedding, etc., right?
Can you recognize what that is? Can you pinpoint what happens for you when you see that? Maybe it's a social media post, or you hear you're talking to your mom and your mom brings this up, or what's the feeling? And I would start there. There's a lot of information there. Is it anger? Is it anxious? Is it fear? Right? What is it? If it's fear, what are you afraid of? Or maybe it's anger because it's so off from who you are or what you might want for your life, right?
Mm.
Like, so then what is it that you want for your life? How do you see yourself in the context of career?
Do you use the labeling of emotions as the data point to begin, and you connect that with their identity? How does you, where you're at currently in your life, match or align or not align with where you're trying to go? And maybe that's when you can shift the conversation to, okay, well, how do we help you get there? And here's where I think there's nuance is where they want to go may still be driven by where they think they need to be based on comparisons with other people. I'm 40, I should own a house, I should have kids.
Yeah.
And again, how do you get rid of that noise? That noise of what they see on social media and that like picture
Yeah.
perfect home that's portrayed when reality it's usually not that behind closed doors.
It's journaling, it's going
Mm-hmm.
for walks. I'm a big proponent of the walk without a phone.
Mm-hmm.
Like, leave your phone at home and take
Mm-hmm.
yourself for a walk. Don't take your phone for a walk.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Just be with
um,
yourself and the
yeah.
world.
So I work a lot with anxiety.
Mm-hmm.
Part of that is like when our thoughts are moving faster than our body, right? And so we bring our thoughts into alignment with our body, right? And that's the present, and that's the senses, and
Mm-hmm.
um, that's the skill set. But also this space where our thoughts are not aligned with our values. So this comparison, you're thinking, oh my God, I'm supposed to have this amazing career and then this house, and why don't I have that? And right. But maybe that's like not what you actually want, and your values are something very different. But anxiety is kind
Mm-hmm.
of what lives in that space in between like your values, like who you are. And sometimes it's where you are. Like it could be you're in a completely wrong career. Everyone has told you that you should be a computer engineer or something. And so you
Mm-hmm.
did that whole thing. You did the path, right?
And now you hate
You're
your job because
actually like,
Claude is there.
right, yeah,
And now you're like, oh, I hate this because now I'm no longer
yes.
actually coding.
And like you realize that like you actually love art,
Mm-hmm.
that's, or film is like something that's interesting to you. A client like that might come because they're feeling anxious, starting to have panic
Mm-hmm.
symptoms, right? And it's like, I don't know what's going on, right? Like kind of
Mm-hmm.
getting, how do we come into alignment? It can show up in a lot of different ways. Is it the path that I'm walking isn't actually right for me? Was that the mistake? Is it my thoughts are just so far off and my body's here and like my feet stop working because I'm so
Mm-hmm.
anxious, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's like the grounding them, getting them into alignment. Part of that is helping them establish like where they currently are, like centering them, and then where they're wanting to be and elucidating the anxious thoughts that might be clouding their view and therefore their judgment and what they do and how they then navigate or not navigate to where they want to be. I think the way you described it yesterday to me was using this fog metaphor where it's cloudy, a lot of
Yeah.
fog to understanding yourself, where you want to be. And
Yeah.
perhaps that fog, some of that are the emotions.
Yeah. It was finding your voice kind of
Mm.
within, how to tune into what you want and make your voice
Mm-hmm.
louder, kind of with all of this noise. So, all of these expectations, those are loud enough. But
Mm-hmm.
sometimes our desires, our wants, our wisdom about what we know, because we are the only ones who know what's right for us. Again, coming to therapy, looking for advice from an expert, it's like, I don't have the answers, you have the answers. So let's get there. Let's
Mm-hmm.
quiet the noise. Let's listen to your voice. Let's make it louder. How do we do that? What do you want for yourself? And it's amazing when, after years of working with somebody, and they get there and they're living this
Mm-hmm.
life that is fulfilling, and the depression and the anxiety is not there anymore. It's pretty amazing, right? But it's
Yeah.
like
It's like
this,
the cloud lifts.
and you've known the whole time. Like when you make that decision for yourself, it's so much more fulfilling than someone being like, you know what you need? What you need, you do. And I
Mm-hmm.
believe you.
Mm-hmm.
I know you can get there.
It can take years because it is scary to even listen to yourself. If I listen to myself and I do something wrong, then I'm the only one to blame. If I listen to myself because this is the expectation, well,
Yeah.
I can blame the culture, I can blame my family, I can blame other
Mm-hmm.
circumstances. And so listening to yourself is in itself a practice, a
That's right.
skill. And
Yeah.
I think that I see this often when I work with people who've like always listened to their family, their parents about what to do. And then they start feeling that discomfort and feel it's too scary to listen to themselves. They're like teeter-tottering between what they want to do and what their family wants them to do. And getting
Yes.
still, quieting the noise can also feel really uncomfortable. And I think
Yes.
that what you're explaining is the fact that they have the ability of doing that. That's
Yeah.
what you're scaffolding, is that you have the
Yes.
foundation. We are getting to the root of it together.
Yeah. This partnership, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
client and the therapist, where it's
Yeah.
like just even having someone say, I believe in you, and
Mm-hmm.
I know you have the strength to do this. I know you can get there.
Yeah. I just thought of an image that came to mind, which is a patient walking on a path. Maybe it's windy and they're holding the hand of the therapist, but the therapist is not even alongside them, it's behind. Like, you
Yeah.
know, that your provider is
Yes.
there and they are able to give you some support for some time. You don't have to be in therapy forever to get that, because at least that's what I say in my practice. But it's going from, hey, lead me to where I need to go, to being an equal partner, to saying, I'm a guide. I'm going to guide you, but you're the one walking. You're the one
Yeah.
that's going to help steer us.
Yeah.
Paulomi, I'm wondering if there's any final takeaway messages that you have for the first generation folks, the immigrants who are navigating all sorts of pressures, and what you might want to say to them.
Yes. Yeah. You're not alone. I can feel very lonely, but you're not alone. And a lot of people who understand what you're going through, and you have a choice, like to listen to your own wisdom about what's right for you. And you've created this for yourself.
They've done such difficult, challenging things leaving their home country and then navigating a system that's foreign and broken in many ways and challenging in many ways. And so
Hmm.
there's so much resilience that's already there. And so they have that inner wisdom to pull from.
Yeah.
That's really beautiful.
Yeah.
Paulomi, thank you
Thank
so
you.
much. If folks want to get in touch with you, they're interested in therapy, what's the best way of reaching you?
Yes. So my website is
Mm-hmm.
MEETINGYOU therapy.com. And yeah, that's me on there.
Okay, we'll
Yeah.
put that in the show description so people can
Okay.
reach out to you. It's been so incredible talking to you, Paulomi. There's so much
Yeah.
wisdom that I think you help to bring out of the people that you work with and have thought about. And so I'm really thankful that you're sharing this with the viewers, the listeners of this podcast, and I'm excited for some future conversations with you.
Yes, thank you so much, Heena. You're doing wonderful work, and I'm so excited to be part of it.
Oh, thank you.
Thanks for all you're doing.